Hey everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's in the Tuber. Welcome back. If this is your fourth Nancy Drew Season 4 episode review, hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying safe in the big movie world. I'm a little sad right now, guys. I'm a little sad. They just announced that High School Musical, the musical series, the fourth season is going to be the last one. We're losing a lot of good shows from our review catalog this year. We've been losing. We took a pretty big hit, but we'll talk more about that in a couple of weeks. But today, for Nancy Drew, we do a little bit of just more sidestepping, but still progressing the main plot just a little bit. Just like a little bit. It's a bit of a new style. Like maybe I'm noticing with this season of Nancy Drew that there's a lot going on. At the same time, we're able to make little deviations with the overarching storyline for the season. Also, once again, this is confirming the show's taking place in 2020, which is funny enough. And I like this episode. I really did. I think this was an enjoyable, fun episode. I think they were able to have a little bit more fun here with some choices, kind of keep it a little bit smaller in scale. And I think, that's necessary to kind of after last week's episode, which was really, really great, we had to take a step back. It wasn't going to be like a better follow-up, but it definitely was still a solid follow-up, which is how do we emotionally handle how last week went. And I think they did a pretty good job at it. So with that being said, let's go through the Butcher recap and talk of this week's episode of Nancy Drew. So we begin where the last episode kind of left off. Nancy is moping. She is sad. She is depressed. It's kind of like the breakup that she had, even though it wasn't technically a breakup because it never even started really. So she's doing the typical thing that most people do when they kind of get broken up with. She's eating a tub of ice cream or a pint of ice cream. And when she sits down on her couch, she instantly realizes it's empty because she's broke as fuck. She hears some screaming outside her property. She runs over, finds a woman kind of being casually chased by a guy with an axe, which I'm like, interesting. Let's see how this goes. This might not be as typical as I think it is. It wasn't. She eventually easily knocks out the hunter, but the killer or whatever this guy looks like. And it turns out to be an actor. Apparently she stumbled onto a movie set and the person directing the film is she was one of those podcasters from the Detective Con episode that was from season 2, I want to say. So it's been a while since that moment. But that was a while back, honestly. So she's back. Apparently, after that episode, her career blew up. She got a movie deal, and now she's directing a movie, which I'm like, do you even have experience to direct a movie? Because some people got to go for school and have experience in that, but you know what? You made a podcast? Okay, you got the experience to do a movie, whatever the case may be. And she picked Horseshoe Bay because this was a reboot, a remake of the original back from the 80s and 90s, so she wanted to come back to the original filming site to continue and film a new legacy for her. She's giving a little bit of what's the modernization of this movie, what's the what makes this a little bit more better. And Nancy's just like, cool, glad to see you're doing great, even though that I'm not really doing anything great myself. Which sucks. But anyway, I just realized are we recording? Because I'm a little bit concerned because I was thinking in my brain, are we recording? We are recording. My apologies. But anyway, so where do we pick up with that? So eventually once they're about to get, they reset the shots, everything's kind of getting back to normal. They hear something on the walkie-talkies, a very disgruntled voice. They don't know who exactly it is because everyone's literally right here on set. Saying some weird noises, and then once it kind of dissipates, the director, she says, oh yeah, this has been happening for the last few days since we've been filming. We haven't really been able to keep on schedule because of all these interferences. And it's it seems like you need an investigator for this. Well, I'm available, which I'm like, Nancy, we get it. You have no money. We get it. You have no job. This is all, starting an investigation company in Horseshoe Bay was kind of your first downfall because I know it's your hometown, I know that, but there's only a finite amount of people that need your services. It's supplementary income they're throwing away for the tiniest thing. Did you even find that animal yet? Did you even find it? Is that even solved yet? Anywho, so Nancy kind of unequivocally takes the case, even though she's like, oh no, we don't need to. It's just a comment. I just made a comment that we need to solve. Wait, it'll be fine. It'll be all fine. Because of the next morning, apparently they're going to use the claw for a filming set as well. And, George is a little bit surprised since she didn't know about this. And Nick was like, yes. Nick said, yeah, I send you the paperwork for you to sign. And she's like, well, I thought that because of our communication distance right now that, like, you know, you wanted more space for me, so I didn't even read your emails. So it's like, dude, like, we run a business together. We're going to have to kind of, you know, talk to each other, you know, at least from the business sense. We got to put aside those personal feelings. And, yeah, so they're still talking about it. George mentions that maybe she's going to buy more bottled water for the cast so that they don't have to use the water supply. And, you know, they're still talking about, like, last week with the whole, you know, like, they were trying to pitch to the town council to kind of, you know, at least close off the water drain so they can at least gain access to testing for the water. And, you know, that was immediately declined, and they kind of, like, you know, dropped the issue since then. And it's not like they even stopped trying, because they had meetings with the councilwoman again, but she's not taking any calls right now. She kept missing their meetings. So that's the first alarming thing to be concerned. The second alarming thing is that Bess actually got cast in this movie. She's been cast as victim number 1, which I'm like, you know, everyone's gonna start somewhere. Everyone's gonna start out somewhere. So she got the part. They also have not been in contact with Nancy for a week. She's kind of been like off the grid with everyone, so it's just kind of have to lonesome. But of course, Bess, you know, got the contact with her saying that I need coffee. And she's like, great, we'll take any sort of communication you might get from us. Ryan stops in wanting to check in on his daughter, which is ironic because, like, last week we got Carson, this week we got Ryan, but the other one isn't present. So I'm like, yeah, they're budgeting pretty hard for this final season. They can't afford everyone anymore. Nancy walks through, picks up her coffee immediately, you know, suggesting like, okay, I took a job in order to, like, get myself out of this funk with Ace right now. She hasn't talked to Ace since their breakup. And, you know, Nancy's just going to try and throw herself back into her work, see if that kind of, you know, unclears the mind a little bit and gets back to how things were before. She even fills in Ryan a little bit on it that she could use a partner on this one. And Ryan's like, on it, like, you know. And also, I think this is the first time in a long while that we've seen these two actually partner up. It's been a while. So, actually, like, you know, like, I'm all down for this team up over here. So beyond that point, I want to say they head off to the movie set while Bess is still rehearsing her lines. She even taking a little break. And I keep forgetting that Bess still works at the clock because, again, like, her salary at the Historic Society is not paying any bills. It's literally not paying, even though that she gets, like, room and board, basically. She video calls Ace, who's busy at the morgue, you know, working over there. And she's just trying to get suggestions from him. And he's not really, like... Okay, he himself is not really even in the best place right now of his life right now, so he's not really giving the best answers. Bess is also avoiding the new police captain because after last week with the whole accusation that Bess is negatively influencing the kids of Horseshoe Bay with all this magic supernatural stuff, that it could be cause for the Historic Society to finally get shut down. So she's been trying to avoid her for a while. And so she continuously does so while she, you know, hunkers down in, like, the little thing, which I'm like, I'm pretty sure the captain could just peek over there and she'll just see you perfectly fine. So she has to go. So we're at the movie set, and again, like, this movie set's pretty low budget. Like, they have no proper security here. They're filming at a house for multiple scenes, and Nancy's just trying to get in with the director, just trying to say, like, I'm just want to watch the film. I have no other, you know, reason to, you know, maybe I'm just going to donate my services, you know, voluntarily for no pay right now, but you just to make sure, like, I'm your supernatural security, so to speak. So they're starting to film, and Nancy does not know any sort of proper etiquette to proper shooting on a film set. And they have to reset the scene and everything, but then eventually they look over to a nearby window prop and find it being covered in blood with a warding on it. So obviously they're all concerned about, like, you know, that wasn't there originally. What's going on? This is a little bit concerning right now. So they're talking about things. They're trying to figure out, like, who could possibly have a motivation to be against the movie. They're thinking maybe the original director maybe did it, but, like, the problem is that the original director died already before the movie came out, so that wasn't really the option there to explore that. And I believe so from then on they did, like, you know, say, like, well, maybe it is a supernatural case. I'm like, you know, you never really know. Beth shows up to set to, like, start filming her scenes already. And I want to say from that moment, do we get the video scene? I'm not 100% sure. I think we do. So they eventually look online. Apparently he was a very problematic director when they were filming the original. He yelled at his staff, he yelled at his team, he yelled at everyone. Like, he was very ungrateful. So that could be kudos that maybe he's still haunting the set. Maybe now that they're filming a new show, a new production, maybe that's the case. Um, so yeah, so they go over back to the house where Bess is like rehearsing her scene. Then eventually she performs her scene. But however, when she's backing up into a room full of like literally iron hooks, which are supposed to be fake props, she gets cut by one of them. She's actually bleeding really bad, and the director's confused because like, well, all these props are basically rubber, so like there's no way these can like really cut her. So that indicates like something else is at play here. That's when Nancy brings up her idea and everything. Even it's still not fully accepted really because there's still like very much like speculation on that front. So they're still at the scene. They're still reviewing like what they have in store. Like what else are we missing out of here? Eventually, once they go back in the house, the police captain shows up, wanting to like just make sure like everything's doing all right with the set. Everything's going okay. Eventually, the director has to go check out the bathroom for final approval. But when she gets in there, it locks behind her, and then she sees the lights up top. They fall on top of her, but they Nancy manages to pull her away from it, so he saves her. Eventually, the captain's like, okay, we're shutting down production. Like, this entire set's going to be condemned, and like, y'all not going to allow it to be filmed until like this entire shit's like figured out right now. So, Nancy invites her back to her place to like kind of settle down for a little bit while Nancy figures out what her next move is. I want to say at the same time, George and Nick are still trying to find the councilwoman who hasn't been spotted anywhere. Eventually, I want to say there's a scene between them again, but like I'm legitimately forgetting a little bit. I think from then on, they do just immediately go to her place. They do find her already off the bat at her vacation home, not her primary residence. I don't even know how they got access to the vacation house. Eventually, Nancy goes back to the house. She finds one of the grips there, and he's explaining that like, yeah, so I'm just noticing something weird because like I was just checking the water supply and was hoping that the owner would be able to talk to her about this because like I noticed the stunt team was drinking the water from the tap and they had this like this like black thing entering their veins, and like I thought it was kind of crazy, and I just wanted to make sure like maybe she should like check the sign, and then they verify it's the councilwoman's place that she volunteered the house for the movie. And that was around the same time that George and Nick arrive at the councilwoman's home vacation home, and actually that was a little scary because like, what was she gonna do? Was she gonna affect them too? Thankfully, George manages to get her a call with Nancy connected, so she's able to give her the warning like, heads up. The councilwoman, she probably has something to do with this somehow, because like this is all too coincidental right now. Plus the woman that was in the leaked video from the set was also the councilwoman as well, just at a younger age. So it's all fitting in together now. It's all fitting in together. So eventually George and Nick confront her about this. Of course, obviously we know she's still under the black water influence herself as well. So they're just like figuring out like what's going on, like why are you doing this? Like there's too many like coincidences. And she only missed like when she was originally filming that movie, like she hated the director, like she did not consider him a good person. So her and her fellow crew members decided to teach him a lesson at his hotel by just trying to like scare him, like spook him out a little bit. But how it ended up killing him. But around the same time, the stunt team from the movie find the director at Nancy's place. They're trying to attack her. She tries to evade them, but however she does get stabbed pretty bad. I'm like, that should have killed her, but like, nah, she's still alive. They eventually, I don't know how they do it. Like they're just watching her and everything. Nancy and Beth show up. They attempt to resuscitate her. It somehow works. Again, I don't know how this, like, it's all magically like everyone seems to be all right, guys. Everyone seems to be all right. Eventually, I want to say they get the machine back from the collector's son again. So they're trying to like get the Blackwater out of them, and like they're very thankful, like that they managed to have this machine on hand. Like it's so lucky. And Nancy said, yeah, it's the only one left in the world that can perform this sort of thing. And as soon as they finish up, the machine finishes up with these 4 people, it breaks. So I'm like, great. So they're screwed once more. Like they're really screwed. So once they start putting the pieces together, so they assume that because from the last episode with the last case, that the Blackwater brings up the drinkers, like their worst like moments, their worst fears, and like they kind of like manifest itself to be the primary form. So she admits like that was a shitty thing that she did to him, and like I guess it came back to haunt her, and then eventually it was all somehow connected with the real paranormal, when everyone was affected with the water, it managed to like create a perfect storm for all of this to happen. So yeah, the water is a legitimate problem, and now with this information, Nick and George are basically making her like leave the council so that they can have a primary person, a better person who can actually like enact change and like make good decisions for the town. To have way, she agrees. She decides, okay, I'll go. No ifs, ands, or buts. She just leaves, kind of easily, in my opinion. Nick and George have a moment where like they still work good together, and like she's still very much like sad that they can't be fully together anymore. And Nick's like, yeah, we can find a compromise, like a good middle ground where like we're not intruding on each other's personal space, that we can still be best friends and everything, and like nothing would be would be a problem between them, which I'm like, yeah, I know these guys are still setting up seats for like them to eventually get back together. So I'm like, kudos to them on that front. Afterwards, yeah, the main case is over. The film manages to resume production. Even Nancy gets paid for it. But quite the director, still not feeling 100% herself. She admits that like, usually she would rely on her grandma, who we met, I think we met in the last episode, that she was in, and that she, would always go to her for comfort, go for her for advice. And sadly, she passed away before the film even began production. So she hasn't been really been able to actually like, get that sort of assistance from her because she's not around anymore. And it sucks right now, but she's going to be able to make through it and like, do everything she's about to do for the rest of her life in honor of her spirit. So that was really sweet. Ace finally gets a physical appearance in the episode where, I want to say Bess visits him, gives him some food, and like even lets him know like, hey, like, I know everything, that, that Ace already got filled in the whole mystery from Nick. So he already knows, and he found this connection because he gets to work in the morgue, so he has access to like a lot of old archive files that the judge and the director, who were both kind of already preliminary victims of the Black Water, were together during a fishing trip many, many years ago. So they were connected even before this entire thing happened. So there must be something that we don't know about, like what's the overall, like the bigger grand scheme of things. Like that's what we're going to try and find out eventually. At the same time, Nancy gets cheered up by Ryan. Let's watch a movie. Let's have a father-daughter, bonding Chinese food session, just to relax a little bit, just to, like chillax, which I'm like, that's actually pretty sweet. That's actually kind of a sweet gesture for them to have. But yeah, that was it for this week's episode of Nancy Drew. So for me, I feel like the topic of like, Nancy and Ace, like trying to move on in their own ways, Ace kind of like just being very, very much separated from the rest of the crew. Nancy being a little bit more like, I need to focus on my work. I need to focus on my career, and hopefully have that like consume all of my time, all of my energy so that I can actually, move forward, from Ace. So that was really, like, really nice to see. Like, it was the next natural step for them after everything that happened in the last episode. And it does suck that they're in that position right now, but, they got to live and let be. Like, this is a much more natural response to how things were at the end of season 3 then. As for the overall mystery, so it was nice to bring back another, like, obviously this is the last season, so for them to be able to bring in an older character, kind of have them, like, kind of pseudo conclude their storyline a little bit, kind of give them off, like, and into happier pastures. Was a nice touch on it. Nick and George was like, you know what, we're kind of dragging this on a little bit, like, kind of giving them like new challenges every week, minorly. Like they're not the primary focus, but like still like just the amount of times where they mention like, oh, we got to separate, oh, we got to distance ourselves. Like it's kind of getting a little bit old in my opinion, but like, this is all part of the natural-ish development of like, we're trying to move on from a relationship in a successful manner that allows us to still be in contact with each other. So I will give them kudos on that front. The overall still the big mystery with the Black Water. That's still like, how are they going to tie this all in together? Like, I appreciate that, like, it's very minor pieces right now. It's very like minuscule pieces. And we're still pretty good on time. Like, we only have 9 episodes left to go. So I'm like, there's still plenty of time to like really like, continuously set this up. So, but they're setting it up at a nice pace where like, it's not too much, but it's not too little at the same time. Like, so I appreciate the correction in pace. But overall speaking, I think this was another really good episode of Nancy Drew. Definitely was a fun one. To kind of just delve into like, a little bit campy, a little bit like, not fourth wall breaking, but like kind of like, little meta, so to speak. But overall, it was a lot of fun. It really, really was. And it was nice for Nancy and Ryan to share some like actual sweet father-daughter moments like properly, because it just grows to show how much their relationship has changed in the last year. It's kind of crazy. But for me, I'm going to give this episode 2 thumbs up, as always. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this week's episode of Nancy Drew. Let's have a conversation down below, as always. But I believe that's going to do it for me today, everyone. So if you're unaware this video wasn't due from ActionX, reviewing every episode in the final season of Nancy Drew. If you want to know what we're doing normally, what's to do besides our Nancy Drew episode reviews, we are currently doing the Crowded Room reviews each and every week at the brand new episodes on Apple TV. But if you only care about Nancy Drew, you're in luck. We'll be back next week with another brand new episode review. So stay tuned until then. But until the next time, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. Like, favorite, share, ring the bell, and follow us on social media. But for all you members of the Drew crew out there, thank you so much for watching. But until next week, stay safe out there. Be good to each other. And as always, peace out.